Welcome to week 3 of True Story. Thanks so much for coming to your squad. I hope that you are having a good time. And don't forget to be inviting your friends to squad nights. And then in 2 weeks, we will have rally night. And so you want to invite your friends. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be fun. Tonight, we are talking about how sometimes we have to face unknown territory or uncharted territory. Like maybe whenever you started a new school or a job, or maybe you're a senior and you're about ready to go off to college and maybe you don't even know where you're going. But I want you to know that even in times of uncertainty and in times of the unknown, we know who has our future. I want to share about a time when me and my family were facing some unknowns or some uncertainties. It was about a year ago, and I didn't have a job, and we were living in Texas, and I did not know where God wanted us to go. I didn't know if He wanted me to go and get another job. I didn't know if He wanted us to wait until another ministry or another church wanted to hire me. We did not know what was going to happen. There were days that felt like I was trusting Him and that I was in His will, or that I knew where He was taking us. But there were a lot of days when that unknown was getting the best of me, where I'm like, what is happening here? What in the world is God doing in our lives? Because it did not seem like He was going to come through at times. And I had trouble trusting Him. And maybe that's just me. Maybe you experience that sometimes too in your unknowns, that sometimes it's hard to trust in the unknown. In the movie Up, it's a story of a guy named Carl who has a lifelong relationship with the unknown. And he dreamed of going on adventures with his girlfriend Ellie. Carl and Ellie, they got married and they tackled an adventure together. But along the way, they had financial hardships, health issues. What if they can't have kids like they wanted to? But Carl and Ellie, they took it on together and they had an adventure together. Later in life, they'd spent many years together, and Ellie passed away. And Ellie, in her death, she actually had created a new adventure scrapbook for Carl. And in this scrapbook, she helped Carl remember something. The unknown doesn't have to be scary, but rather the unknown can be an invitation into something exciting, into a new adventure. In the Bible, in the book of Ruth, we read about Naomi and Ruth, who have a lot in common with Carl. They're facing an unknown. Naomi is married to Elimelech, and they move off to a faraway land with their 2 sons. Their 2 sons get married to Ruth and Orpah. And Elimelech, the dad, dies. And then 10 years later, the 2 sons also die. So now we have 3 ladies, Naomi, Ruth, and Orpah, that are facing an unknown and are in an extremely vulnerable situation because there is no longer a man in their life. Now today you might be laughing saying, that's okay, I can do this on my own. I'm an independent woman. But in their day, in their culture, they were left extremely vulnerable. And so Naomi, she's in this sad state of despair, and she tells Ruth and Orpah to go off, get remarried, and they're free to go. Orpah goes off and lives her own life, and we don't know much else about her from here. But Ruth says no. She wants to follow with Naomi. And what we read in this passage is that they actually follow different gods. Naomi follows the one true God, and Ruth worships this other god. After many years of watching her mother-in-law follow God, she decided to take a risk. She became loyal to not only Naomi, but also chose to start following the one true God. You can read about this in the book of Ruth in the Old Testament. It's only 4 chapters long, so it's pretty short. But we can read about how together Naomi and Ruth, they returned to Bethlehem, not knowing what the future might hold, but they knew that they could trust God. And so we can read in Ruth chapter 4, verse 14, and it says, Then the women said to Naomi, Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a redeemer. and may his name be renowned in all of Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. So while nothing could replace the loss of Naomi's husband or her two sons, God was able to rebuild their family. They may have been uncertain about what their futures held, but God had a plan. God had a plan for them, and they were willing to walk in faith. And so this story reveals a few things about God. It tells us that we have a God that isn't afraid of our doubts and questions and emotions. We have a God that isn't afraid to meet our needs. We have a God that knows our future, that is a redeemer and a rescuer. We serve a God that has a plan and is in control. And if you add all that up, it shows us that God is good. Earlier, I shared with you a story of when my family, we faced times of the unknown and uncertainty when I didn't have a job a year ago, and how I had seasons of doubt and uncertainty. And I had some times when I was actually trusting in the plan that God had. But here we are, a year later, looking back on that time and looking forward to now, knowing that there was a plan in place, knowing that God was in control the entire time. And even though a pandemic hit in the middle of it, we moved here and everything shut down, and I still wasn't able to meet you, knowing that there's a plan in place and trusting God in that plan is what has brought me to today. And so as we face unknowns, as we face uncertainties, what I want us to know, what I want us to remember is that because of who God is, we can trust the unknown. So what is it that you're feeling uncertain about today? Maybe it's something as simple or everyday, like starting a new school or starting a new job. Maybe you don't know how to resolve a conflict or a fight that you've had with a friend. Maybe it's something a little bit bigger, like a big decision, discovering that a loved one is ill and may not recover, or living with a family member whose temper is unpredictable. And just like we're experiencing right now, we're always hearing about wars and tragedies and the pandemic. And maybe things like that just make you feel uncertain about our current times. And I want you to look back at times when you were uncertain in the past and God came through for you. Maybe there was a time when you felt uncertain, but God helped you make the wise choice. Or maybe you were afraid and God gave you peace. Maybe you needed support and God gave you a friend, or you were in need and God provided for you. I want you to remember some uncertain times in the past and how God came through for you. And I want you to know that because of who God is, you can embrace the unknown. Look, I want you to remember that whatever uncertainty you are currently facing, I want to challenge you to remember what is true about God and what is true about you. Just like Naomi and Ruth, that God can guide and go with you during times of uncertainty, and He can redeem what's gone wrong. Remember that God can handle your doubts and your questions and your emotions. God is a provider, a redeemer, and always has a plan. And because God is in control, you don't have to worry. And again, remember, because of who God is, you can embrace the unknown.